Okay, so today we're talking about budgeting. It's a perfect time of year to talk about budgeting. I think we've been talking about our budget for months at this point.
So many months.
So many months. We're gonna kind of go into the whys. We're gonna kind of go into some strategies. Kind of go into the fun part of the budgeting. If there is a fun part, this would be it. But yeah,
I don't know, Lex. My fun part is building out models. So
that's not my fun part.
I know.
But anyways, okay. So basically we're talking about what we learned about budgeting and then kind of how we're modifying it and the things we've learned to make it a little bit better for 2026. So first, you want to talk about the why behind the numbers, if you will?
The why behind the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So high level, this kind of started from a more technical place. And then we've really been focusing on the why and identifying the whys of things like this year in accounting therapy. And it's kind of transitioned from a technical to more of an idealistic place. So I'll go into the technical first. So one thing when you're building out your budget is to make notes and that like identify like why and how you got to someplace, right? So what I've done in the past and like for example, like we typically build out our budget in Excel. I'm sure there's some fancy softwares out there. You can build out your budget in QuickBooks, but take note if you build it out in QuickBooks, you can't add notes. I like to just use the comments on the cells in Excel to say, like, okay, I'm budgeting X amount in education for this month and X amount of travel. And here's how I got there because we're sending 3 people to this conference and I'm estimating their airfare to be here and there and whatever so that like because in 6 months 11 months down the road you're going to look at something on your budget and be like what is this
Yeah.
so that's more of like the technical why of like identify like why those things why the numbers are what you put in
Yeah.
right now the more fun part of the why. Lex, you want to dig into this?
The fun part. Remind me what we're
Well,
talking
the
about.
fun part just like what's the reason behind it? What are you hoping to
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
achieve, right?
Yeah. So the thing that I really like when Taylor, brings me these spreadsheets she loves to create, I like looking at them. She likes creating them.
Thank
But I
God.
like seeing like, in June, we're going to be hiring this employee to get us to that next revenue level or to do marketing or whatever. So it kind of gives us like what our plans are within the business, what we're going to be doing, whether it's hiring or bringing on new software that's going to make things better or whatever it might be. I I think that's the fun part. Like, okay, in June, we're going to be hiring. So we have to do X, Y, and Z in March, April, May to get to that point. So it kind of like creates little mini goals within the budget too, to be able to see, like, oh, this was the plan to hire somebody to do marketing or bring them into the bookkeeping team or whatever it might be. So that's that's my fun with the budget is seeing like what's going to happen and how things
Yeah,
change.
and one thing too that I took away from a session that I went to at Intuit Connect recently, we Alexis and I both were there in Las Vegas. It was a great event, but it was like identifying how certain things are going to affect other things, right? So like if you're gonna invest in your marketing up front, like you're gonna push that lever. Okay, that lever, you're gonna see your profits go down because now you're spending more on marketing. You can't necessarily maintain your same profit margin, perhaps, if you're spending more,
Yeah.
but you're hoping to see that return. So identify then, like, where does that return come? Does it come 3 months down the road? Does it come 6 months down the road? And then where should that other lever, aka profit margin, start going back up, right? Because you're seeing the fruits of one lever impact the other.
Yeah.
And same thing with hiring too. Like hiring is a huge investment. You're not going to get full capacity from that person until later on. And you also may not have the like you may need to bring on that person to alleviate somebody else to do something to bring in more sales. So, like, those are just levers you have to think about. You're never going to hit all of your targets all at once. You know, like you
That
have
would
to
be nice.
identify, like, okay, I'm investing in this. This is going to drive this other thing down.
Yeah.
But now later on, it's going to drive this other thing up because that's the, exponential
Yeah.
part.
The other thing with the budgeting too is when you sit down and do your annual planning, not necessarily your budget or anything like that, but what do you want to do with your business? Do you
Yeah.
want to grow your team? Do you want to invest in marketing? Do you want to reduce your team? Whatever it might be, you got to make sure your budget ties into those other goals as well, whatever those goals may be, whether you want to have additional team members or, invest in education so team members can be more efficient or whatever it might be. Make sure that your budget is tying into your goals for the business as well, for sure, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. But,
Yeah. It's all
and
intertwined.
it's all intertwined. Yeah. Unfortunately, money is part of everything in the business.
Life, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately.
Exactly. So, so I saw a really cool quote that I wanted to share in regards to this. So, what this quote says is your budget is a reflection of what you believe will matter most in the next year, not just what you can afford, but what you are choosing to invest in. So think of when you're planning and whatnot. That's really what you want to do. You want to do as Taylor likes to say, you want to move the needle. What are the things that you need to invest in to move that needle?
I like that.
Okay, so now getting started. So, how do you usually? I think we all kind of do this, but for sake of discussion, how do you usually get started? What do you usually look at first in
So,
determining where we want to go?
yeah, in previous years, I'll pull a past P&L. So month over month, that's how we do our budgeting. We budget out each month. I think it's helpful just for visibility on kind of what you can expect, at different seasons in the business. So I'll pull the P&L month by month for the last year, maybe the last 2 years. It just kind of depends what type of business you are. And then I start playing with things. So in the past, with our revenue, I really just took like last year's numbers, put in what we like the percentage, and then we kind of finagled it of like, oh, we think we can add X clients in this month, maybe not so many in this month. So it was like a blanket, let's say 30% income increase, right? And then we built it out by like, okay, what are we actually expecting? Um, One of the things that we started tracking more closely is that acquisition of sales. And so now we have some data from like week over week or month over month that we've been accumulating all year that I'm going to pull first, analyze that, kind of use that to like look at the numbers too. So, but honestly, like I just start from last year and go
Yeah.
go from there, and then you just start adding.
Yeah, so one trend that I've noticed in our company, and I don't know if this is standard across all accounting companies, but one trend I've noticed in our company is summertime tends to be really small. So when we look at
Slow,
an summertime tends
slow.
for sales,
Yeah.
yeah, projects tend to come up during summertime, but in general getting new clients and whatnot is generally slower during the summertime. We've always equated it to mom and dad's on vacation with kids and they don't want to deal with accounting so they don't make the call. But so one of the things that we do is that might be a time where we would bring on that new app because we know we don't have a lot of, new leads coming in and whatnot, and we have the capacity to do that. So looking at when, the clients come in and when the clients don't come in can kind of support your decision in deciding when to do new things for the business or when to, maybe that would be a good time to hire and get somebody trained and onboarded and ready for, the August, September kind of, influx when everybody's got to file their taxes and whatnot. So it's really like look at what history has happened throughout your business and see, when people are coming in, when it's slow, and those may support your ideas on when to invest or budget, if you will, certain types of business and whatnot, certain types of activities, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so yeah,
I think that's great.
yeah, it's worked for us so far. Okay, so now this is also a very fun part for me is the wish lists and the real costs. You know what I mean? Having that dream. So you want to dig into on that one?
Sure. So this isn't something that we've actually done before.
Yeah.
Um, and in full transparency, our budget was supposed to be pretty much done by now, and it's just getting started because of all of the life things, including being sick and at conferences and all the things that have, taken up its time. But basically, what we wanted to do this year is like, let's just put it all out there. It's like, you may think like, oh, we really want to go to this conference, but like we shouldn't spend the money, or we really want to do X for our team, but it's not there. So like, let's just get it all on paper and then take it away. And like just see where it lands. Like, and maybe you'll see that, oh, actually, like this thing is actually really important to me. I want to take away this other thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool. And like you can kind of then look back to at last year's like dream list of like, okay, like we had a really good year. Like maybe what can we add this year? But it allows you to like dream, right?
Well, I think it also supports that if you have these dreams and you know what these dream costs are, you know what your revenue has to be to get those.
Yeah.
So it gives you that, that other goal of like, okay, I want to take my team to Aruba for a week. Like we're going to need some good revenue in order to support that. So,
Yeah.
I think it supports, the growth part of it too, and not just necessarily the expenses. So,
Yeah. And I think part of the dream list too is like, you don't have to get rid of it completely. Like maybe you have another tab in your sheet of like, okay, these are all the things that got cut from the budget. But if you find yourself mid-year and you're doing way better than you anticipated, maybe you get to look at that and add some things back, right?
definitely, definitely.
So, Um, but in thinking about like what you're putting on this budget and this list, like, even when you're putting on your dream list, I think talking about or identifying like the prioritization of things. So, like your must-haves, like your core tools, your software, any like, necessary new hires that you need, followed by your growth drivers. So, like maybe that's investing in your marketing. That also could be a new team member, right?
Yep.
Um, so things like that. And then like your nice to have. So it's like the trip to Aruba. Although I think that's a must have personally, but I don't
I
run this
think we
thing.
should do
So.
it. Let's put that in our budget this year. See what happens.
Oh my gosh, a firm was saying at Connect that they took their whole team to Mexico and their families.
Oh my God,
I
that's a
was like, that
dream.
I love that.
Yeah, I would love
And it
to
was
do
like a
that.
20-person firm. Like that wasn't like, some huge, huge company. So you can do
Yeah,
it. Just
we
put it
can
out
do
in the
it.
world.
Yeah, exactly. Throw it out in the universe and it will come to you, right?
Yeah,
You just have to work for it too.
that's true. Yes.
Oh man. Okay, now with the must-haves, the growth drivers, and the nice-to-haves, or the dreams, if you will, we kind of talked about having like those milestones, determining like, okay, here's my three different, must-haves, growth drivers, dreamer, nice-to-haves, right? And then coming up with, well, here's the budget. I want to budget with the must-haves and everything else is gravy, or I want to really focus on the growth drivers. So this is, kind of what we're going to do. So how do we do like how do we trigger the difference between where we're at and if we get to have some of those nice haves, like the milestone part of it? Like, what does that look like? How do you figure that out? What am I trying to say?
I'm following. So
Okay.
one thing that we didn't touch on earlier is a budget is the budget until January 1st. And then
Right.
it's no longer a budget and it's a forecast. And then you need to be updating that monthly. So what we like to do is so I have my budget, and then in January, like the end of January, once my January books are closed, preferably pretty close to the beginning of February, I'm bringing in all of my January numbers. So I know what my budget was for January, what my actuals were for January, and where I was off. Then I basically take January's actual, add in the rest of my budget to see where I'm at year end. Based on January, or if you're doing this, like let's look maybe farther down the road at like April, right? So now you have actuals for January, March, January, February, March, and April. Um, like based on how things have gone, maybe there's some shifts that need to happen. So don't be afraid to change your budget. I think that's like one thing that we have done in the past is like, well, this is what the budget says, so this is what we're sticking to. It's like, well, actually, we didn't do so well in Q1. So like we need to readjust this budget, right?
Yep.
It's not going to look like your budget in January, but like that's okay because that's not realistic anymore for where you are. Or maybe you've done really well and you need to add those dreamer things back. So I think just reevaluating each month of like what happened last month, the last few months, how does that impact the rest of the months going forward? Are you seeing a different trend than maybe you had when you built this thing? Don't be afraid to change it. And then those are kind of how you're going to see those milestone triggers of like, ooh, like we're hurting. Okay, we need to cut this other stuff. Or like, hey, we have some extra cash. Now we can add some of this back, right?
Yeah. 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 So we didn't prep for this. We didn't even talk about this, but here's something that kind of just popped in my head. Surprise! We have a surprise question. So what is your thoughts on sharing the budgets, the actuals, the forecasting, if you will, with your team? What do you think about that?
Curveball.
Yeah, curveball.
I like it. I think that as close as you can get to like an open book management style is great. I think transparency and clarity like gives people clarity,
Yeah,
right? If everybody can be on the same page and know where they stand versus team members stand and like where the company stands,
yeah,
I think that that is a I don't know, as like a team member, like I would love to see that because then like the company's held to their core values, to their guidelines, right? Like if you're working for a company where you're getting not paid well, have no benefits, and the owner is taking 50% profit margin home, like maybe that doesn't align with your internal core values or what core values they're saying, right?
yeah,
So I think it just holds people accountable to a higher standard. And it's nice to see like where the company is going. It's like
yeah,
if they're struggling and that's why these things aren't happening, there's reasoning there. It's not just like, you can't go to this conference, sorry. It's like, hey, we're struggling. Like,
yeah,
we can't afford to send you. We'd love
yeah,
to, but maybe next year, right?
yeah.
What are
I
your
think that
thoughts?
I think the well, you know me, I'm in sales. That's my world. That's kind of where I live. And any way that we can increase sales or revenue or projects or even, all tied in with customer satisfaction and their ability to get what they want out of us. I think if our team is seeing, okay, we're doing our bookkeeping is, low and our non-recurring is really high. I think them being able to go in and go, well, maybe we need to like talk to these non-recurring people about bookkeeping. Maybe they don't know, or maybe they don't know how they could benefit from it or whatever it is. I think the whole team being able to see specifically revenue in this example, I think it gives them the ability to go, oh, we're not hitting our targets, or oh, we blew our targets out of the water. We're getting good bonuses this year, or whatever it might be. So I think visibility is always good, to for people to know what to expect from their, the company that they work for. I think is invaluable.
Yeah,
Absolutely invaluable. But anyways, that's just me.
I like it.
Yeah. So we do have a little time to talk about that topic that we weren't sure on, and it's capacity meets cash. So let's dig on this a little bit. So capacity meets cash. What does that mean to you?
Um, oh man. So you obviously this is
It's a
going to
big one.
be yeah, and more relatable to service-based industries, I will say.
Valid.
Um, Albeit it does impact product industries as well, but it's not quite as close of a tie. So capacity is for us is literally tied to our revenue. We have to have team members to perform services to hit our revenue goals. And so um, when I'm planning specifically for this year, I am going to be looking at like the revenue build, how much time, how many team members it will take to carry that revenue, and taking into account like a ramp up period. So like if we hire somebody in, let's say January, I'm only expecting them to be at a 20% capacity in the sense of like doing the work, right? Whereas maybe by February, they're more at like a 40, 50% capacity, 70 by March, and like 100%, because I know what it takes to onboard and just get somebody
Yeah.
up to full speed. So, for us, it's taking that into account when you're planning your month by month, because you really do need to be aware of the time that it's going to take to fulfill any of these new services, new, clients that you're servicing.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part in creating a budget for a service-based industry is saying, I want my revenue to be $50,000. Great. How many people does that take? How many hours does that take? They obviously there's going to be some administrative time, there's going to be days off, there's going to be all these other things that you kind of got to tie into this getting this $50,000 revenue. So
Yeah.
yeah, the
And
yeah.
I've heard somebody refer, I think it was actually Greg Crabtree in Simple Numbers, but he refers to some of these things as like step costs, right? So
Mhm.
like onboarding a new employee, it's like bringing on a new employee, especially if you're doing it salary and out of full capacity, like you step that cost. You incur that all immediately, whether they are at full capacity or not. But eventually it kind of evens out because you see your revenue grow up. Same thing with like adding like office space or something, right? Like you've outgrown your office space for 10 people. Now you need an office space for 20. You only have 12. But like that, as you keep growing and building to 20, that step cost keeps kind of going down in a percentage. So again, that's kind of one of those levers, right? Like, okay, we got to pull this lever because we need more space, but we're really not going to see the benefit of that lever until we get to a bigger team. So
Yeah. The levers. Taylor loves the levers.
that was like the key term at Intuit Connect this year. Everybody was talking about levers,
Yep.
which
Yep.
I like it because I don't think we've thought about that in the past. When looking at KPIs and things, it's like we'll see, it's like, you have your targets for all of your KPIs,
Yeah.
your profit margin, your team cost, your team time, like whatever the things are. But it's like, you see one get better and one get worse, and like that's bad in your mind. But
Yes.
actually, it's not, because you pushed that lever. So the offset to that is that this other one's going to go down. So I think also like being aware of that is super helpful because you're not doing bad. We expected this to happen.
Yeah.
So like that's okay, right? But
It's
no,
definitely, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, knowing the impacts of the choices that you're making, going back to like, is this the growth driver? Is this the not nice to have? Is this the must have? Knowing those impacts and like how they're going to affect your business growth and your plans for the year is really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, And that way you just know what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think it kind of released the anxiety behind expectations as well. But
Yeah.
anyways, you want to have everything to be perfect. You want to hit all your targets.
Yeah, but that's not sustainable. Like it's not even sustainable. It's not, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And so I think having that awareness empowers you to say, no, I freaking pushed that lever and I knew this other one was going to go down, but it's going to go back up in a couple months because that's the output.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. That went by really quick. It always does.
Uh-huh.
So your key takeaways. So remember that your budget is going to tell your story, or it should tell your story. And you want to make sure that you have documentation for what you're budgeting. Why are you adding another $10,000 to that line item in that specific month? Are you planning to hire? Are you planning to get a new software app, whatever it might be? So remember that your budget is going to be telling your story. So first thing we want to do is we want to review our past, see the trends that have happened month over month in the prior year or prior years, whatever it is. We want to build a dream list. We always want to have that thing of, if we hit all of our targets and beyond, what are the things we're going to invest in? So we're not just willy-nilly buying flights to Aruba. We want that planned.
Whoops, can't make payroll this year, but we're taking you all to the beach.
Oh man. We want to prioritize everything by performance, the nice to haves, the growth drivers, and the need to haves. And we all, of course, want to align it with our team capacity, and then set our milestones and our trade-offs, our levers, if you will. And then last but not least is know your why. Know why you're doing what you're doing and why you're budgeting what you're budgeting. So any other comments, Tay? You have any other thoughts or anything on this?
I don't think so. Get
You just
started.
want to get to doing our budget.
I do, but no, it's just start with something. It doesn't have to be perfect.
It
And
won't.
then it won't be perfect. You're going to
Yeah.
refine it year after year, month over month, whatever. But just get something on paper that tells a
Hmm.
story that shows what you want to happen and then update it monthly next year. Just pull in your actuals. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. See where you are, see how the trend went versus budget to actual, and then adjust your numbers moving forward and throw out that budget that you created in 25 because
Yeah.
it's and the one you create in January, throw that one out in February. It's gone. So just
Yeah,
don't be afraid to be flexible.
absolutely. All right. I think that's all we have.
All right.
Another quick 30-minute
Um,
webinar.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you all and have a great rest of your day, week, holidays, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.